I'm Aryeh Schwartz along with Rachel Galligan, and welcome to the Winsidr show where it's all about the W. Game 1 of the WNBA Finals is in the books with the Sky taking the 1-0 lead. We got some other big news. The Atlanta Dream have a new head coach and a GM coming soon. Rachel and Aryeh, let's get into it. If you like our show, please consider joining our Patreon community, patreon.com/Winsidr. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can directly show support for the hard work we do covering the W. And don't forget to see our amazing staff's written content over on winsidr.com. And remember, downloading the episode makes our stats look better and allows us to continue doing this important work. Do you want to sponsor an episode of the Winsidr Show? Email us, info@winsidr.com. All right, right off the top, Rachel, let's dive right into it. Announced earlier today, the Atlanta Dream have a new head coach, Tanisha Wright, a well-known player across the coaching sphere, across the women's basketball players world. Let's hop into initial thoughts, but I do want to give you a little bit of credit because a little bit back you wrote an article. I know you don't like to do shameless plugs, so I'm going to shameless plug for you. You did an article talking about which assistant coaches in the W right now are in a position to be the top candidates for a head coaching position. And you spoke about Tanisha Wright. She was in your article. She's now a head coach. How does it feel to look smart?
It doesn't happen very often, so I appreciate that. I really enjoyed that piece because it taught me a lot, thinking that critically, right, about the future of the league and where this is going. And I mean, complete honesty, I'm not surprised by this hire.
At all.
I really thought this would be the hire, to be honest with you. So I think that Atlanta really hit a home run with this. I think that Wright is going to have a long and successful career coaching in the WNBA. I mean, she what she's been able to do has been noticed by many across the league, front office people, players, coaches, across the board as a really big time up and comer, as a coach in the league. So I think when this position opens up and you need that fresh start that we all know Atlanta so desperately needs, what direction were they going to go? And Wright, in my mind, was the number one candidate. And that's just from a complete outsider looking in and looking at the list of, up and coming coaches in the league. Who are those names, right? We talk about Eric Tebow. We talk about, a few, Noelle Quinn. We all knew. I would like to think a lot of us knew that she was up in line there for Seattle. So with Wright, she was the next one in line, in my opinion. I mean, she was the one that I felt like was going to make a big move, and she did. I think Atlanta did a phenomenal job with this hire. I'm very excited for her.
Yeah, I would say the other big name that comes to mind is Latricia Trammell, as somebody who's like that up and coming that in the next few years, especially with an expansion on the horizon, as we've heard reports of, thanks to some great reporters out there doing their due diligence. You got to think that those are kind of the big names. But let's talk about Tanisha. A player who's won a championship 11 years ago in Seattle as part of Super second championship, I believe. Now she's won 4. And an interesting hire. I like the hire. I'm gonna say, something I tweeted out earlier that I think some people were a little bit confused about. I really like this move in the sense of not, look, to me, as much of a simple sign as it is, but to see her not be the GM,
Mm-hmm.
I think you're setting her up for success. She has not been a professional coach in the WNBA for 2 full seasons. So this is a gamble. Let's not pretend, that she's been around the block like James Wade was a person who was an assistant coach for a very long time. This isn't, Gary Kloppenberg. This is somebody who, yes, I'm not negating any of her knowledge. She has been well known as an elite basketball mind, as someone who is going to be a head coach someday. And I respect that and I honor that. But let's be realistic. She's still new into the coaching role, right? Similar to Noelle Quinn. who I think will be a great coach. But realistically, there's going to be some growing pains, right? They're still young in the coaching world. So I think you're setting them up for success by not making them the GM because yes, it cuts corners and maybe makes the hire a little bit cheaper. But I think historically, and we'll see more and more so down the road in the future, that until you're a fully established elite coach, I don't want to see you as the GM. I just think that like you're not setting yourself up for success for that. So I'm happy to say that I've spoken to people with knowledge of the facts, the signings, the ins and outs in Atlanta, and yes, they are going to be announcing a GM hire soon. Not today, but in the very near future.
Well,
The thing for me, yeah, sorry.
and also potentially, I mean, and this is just speculation. You got to wonder, could there be a GM situation and an assistant GM position? Is this a situation where it could be a couple people kind of filling that role? That's going to be really interesting for me to pay attention to.
Oh, definitely. Like, are they going to go possibly? This is a complete revamp of the company, if you want to call the team the company, right? So we're going to see a lot of people in new positions. There's a new ownership, and they've kind of just been waiting to announce a bunch of stuff. I've heard rumblings, but I'll wait for the dream to announce these things. But no, I agree. Like, you bring in, it seems like they're going for young people who can connect to the young players, and I would assume that means that they're going for a young GM. Realistically, that can also mean that you bring in an assistant, someone who's been around the block for a while, to kind of guide them the ins and outs, the intricacies of it, especially with this CBA and the intricacies of the CBA. I think the other interesting aspect, and almost a bigger aspect, real quick, before I pass it back over to you, Rachel, is just free agency. While Tanisha Wright is a huge hire, it's a big name, and she is going to set the culture for this team. Free agency is what's going to define this team moving forward because if you look at their roster, they have Cheyenne Parker, they have that's basically it, right? You have Monique Billings as a restricted free agent, and that's essentially it. That all you have. You have
Yeah.
Aryeh McDonald on contract for that. You have Tiana Hawkins also, but again, essentially that's it besides Kennedy Carter. So for me, if you really want to turn Atlanta around, it's going to come down to who they can attract in the free agency period. What are your thoughts, Rachel?
No, I agree. I mean, it's like we're just going to keep talking about Atlanta. It's been, unfortunately, it's been not a great year. a lot of just rough moments, right, for any any franchise, just from a winning standpoint, from a turnover standpoint. I mean, who would have predicted they would have gone through three head coaches since since January. I mean, it's just been unbelievable. So this is a moment in time where this franchise can, in some sense, blow it up, and I think it needs to be blown up. Now, you get a fresh start. You have a lot of cap space. You have a lot of room. We're going to talk a lot about. Obviously, free agency, all that when the season is done. That's not necessarily where my focus is at this point. But I did want to make one point. I think that we're going to have so much conversation about the Atlanta Dream. And I love that. And that gives us a lot of content in the offseason. I think that this was a great hire. I think that Tanisha Wright, here's the one thing I will say, you know, there's a difference. Not every assistant coach should go on to be a head coach. Like with me, I will say, like, for example, I was a really good college assistant coach. I know that. I knew my strengths. I knew my weaknesses. I knew that recruiting was a thing that I was really, really good at. Now, I'm not trying to shortchange myself. If I someday wanted to be a head coach, could I? I'm sure, of course. But I know my strengths, and I was a phenomenal assistant coach, and I could have been a lifer assistant coach. My point is with this, just because someone has been an assistant coach or floated around the league for many, 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 many years, and we're sitting here going, oh, it's their time. Like, for example, we can talk about Kloppenberg or, and I'm not talking about specifically Kloppenberg in this situation, but I just want to talk about the difference of there are those clear people that are rising up and coming head coaches. They have that oomph about them as maybe a former player, as a leader, or as an on-court general, whatever that might be. Something innately about them is destined to go be a head coach. And with Tanisha Wright, that's 100% the case. She's put in a lot of time at the collegiate level, which I really respect. But yeah, there's going to be some learning curves here. This is she knows the league in and out as a player and as her experience as an assistant. But I think it's going to be so important to put the right experienced people around her that are going to help her continue to develop as a coach, right? So that's exciting and that's great. And I think that Tanisha Wright had that innate part of her that was like, you are supposed to be a head coach, and I'm sure that's what the Dream ownership noticed, within her or knew about her. It's kind of like Sue Bird, right? Like we know Sue Bird, if she wants to, can go be a head coach pretty much anywhere she wants to be. But there are also those people that, what maybe they don't want that, or maybe they're just a really good assistant coach, and that's that role that they thrive in. And those are things that they are more behind the scenes, and they can do a lot of those X's and O's, scouting reports, things like that are so valuable to a team and needed for a team. The point I'm making is not every person will go on to be a head coach. And the point is with Tanisha Wright, she had something special about her throughout her career that has gotten her to this point, and that's clearly been recognized. And so I'm extremely excited for her. So anyway, that's my
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the big question for me moving forward, right? We acknowledge she's deserving of this. We acknowledge that she's ready for this. The two big questions moving forward, uh question number 1 is who's going to be the GM. Sub question for that is how they can attract a few, at least one big name free agent, right? Like for them to start this turnaround quicker, I want to see them be able to pull in one of the big name free agents, a top 10 free agent, bring them in. I think that's going to be key. And then the next thing is her coaching staff. I'm excited to see who she brings in her coaching staff, because that's the other thing, right? Like being a head coach is, calling plays out of timeouts, doing the X's and O's and all of that jazz, but it's also delegating power and delegating roles to your staff, and picking the best staff possible, knowing where your weaknesses are as a coach and finding staff that can help you with that, so that you kind of, it's the same thing as building a roster in my mind. But enough talk about this, because the season is still going on. Two teams are left: the Chicago Sky, the Phoenix Mercury. We're in the WNBA Finals. Chicago Sky taking game 1 of the WNBA Finals in Phoenix. I don't think anyone was shocked. Mercury had a slight lead, I think like a 5-6 point lead going into the first break after quarter number 1. And from there, it was really just the Sky Show. That is a shameless plug for the Sky Show Shy, who deserves all the props and attention, as their team, is in the WNBA Finals for the first time since 2014. Rachel, let's talk about this finals matchup. We knew the Mercury was going to be a matter of, if they're shooting lights out, this is going to be a slugfest battle. If they're not hitting their shots, this is going to be a runaway for the Sky. Well, the latter happened. The Sky ran away with it. We don't even need to talk about the final score. It was a dominant performance. Diana Taurasi probably should have fouled out. How many times she's going to get away with some of these fouls and then have like a makeup call technical on like her doing nothing is whatever. But let's talk about this matchup. Brittany Griner, I think I didn't give enough credit to the fact that the lankiness of Chicago was able to disrupt defending MVP Jonquel Jones and Bree Jones. And I saw a good amount of that defensively against Brittany Griner, right? Like often when we think about going up against Brittany Griner, we think you need to have that stereotypical big, right? You need the Sylvia Fowles. You need the Tierra McCowan. You need the Liz Cambage. But what they've been able to do with their lanky defense and lanky bigs on the Sky side is really aggravate and frustrate elite bigs in this league. And I got to give a hat tip to that, because at the end of the day, we know what the biggest question mark for the Sky is, besides consistency. It's defense.
Mm-hmm.
And for their ability to do that is just impressive. Talk to me about the roles that bigs are playing in this finals, Rachel.
I mean, Chicago has a lot of weapons. They don't have a Griner. No one has a Griner. But you have a lot of different versatility pieces. I think Parker did a great job on Griner. I think you look at Stevens. We talk about her a lot so far these playoffs, and her ability to elevate her game. You didn't even talk about Stephanie Dolson. You have some size. You talk about a Stu Do Fall. I mean, now she didn't play, or she played like 1 minute, so that's a further part of the bench. But Chicago has a versatility to them that, yeah, they do not have that dominant post presence, a Fowles, a Cambage, a Griner, but they have enough length and athleticism and versatility to be able to make things uncomfortable. And they showed us that they're more than capable of doing that. And let's not act like Griner didn't have a great night. I mean, 7 for 15. You probably need a little bit more shot attempts for Griner. I mean, she needs to be closer to the 20s, in my opinion.
She also snuck up on that too, because at one point, I mean, like 7 out of 15 doesn't look bad, right?
Yeah,
Like that's just under 50%. But that was some bunnies towards the end of the game,
sure.
that really kind
Well,
of upped that percentage. I would even flip it on its head, Rachel, and say, first of all, wait, Rachel, we have to do this.
oh god,
Um, Steph Dolson scores 14 points in 17 minutes. She
yeah,
goes 6 of 8, 2 for 3 from three, and 1 assist. She had 3 fouls, okay, but a plus 12. Now, of the 6 players on Chicago off the bench that played, so they played their whole roster. Obviously, you do that when you're up that amount. Steph Dolson, only player off the bench for Chicago to score. She outscored the 4 bench players from the Mercury with those 14 points. And I know Rachel and I, for many a years, have openly criticized Steph Dolson in her play and
criticize
not liking her fit in Chicago. But when she has a good game, we have to step back and say we were wrong.
criticize is harsh. I love
Oh, I've criticized.
I like Dolson. I mean, one of the best shooters. She brings an element to this team that I think sometimes you wonder, like, what's this going to look like, right? But then she does something like she'll play, and she's had a great year, in my opinion. Like, she has done her role. She's a leader for this team. She's been consistent. Her role has evolved over time with the Sky. And I really got to tip my hat to her, and those are situations like you give 16 minutes in a game like this, and you come in and you're as efficient as you are, and that's what Dolson can do, is how efficient she can be. And I think we criticized her, it was a few years back. Dolson had a tough year. The efficiency wasn't there where Chicago needed it. We're not seeing that anymore. This is a veteran player who knows her role, who knows what she needs to come in and do. And it just further adds to the Sky's depth. And the glaring elephant in the room is just Phoenix doesn't have that. They don't have a Steph Dolson. They don't have, a Diamond to Shield. They don't have even like a Dana Evans who can come in and just give you 10 minutes and be relatively steady. There's no depth. And I just sound like a broken record at this point. I think that as we talk about Wednesday's matchup, this is do or die for Phoenix. Otherwise, Chicago might take it in 3. And I will be there Friday, so I will be excited if we get a chance to experience that in person.
Well, no, I completely agree with you. Everything you're saying, I agree with. It's the depth. It's the interesting aspect, and I think I touched on this either in one of the spaces or in one of our episodes. But the interesting aspect of Chicago is like we saw Phoenix go up against the most deep team in the league, right? The Aces. Like it's not even a question. Still, the Aces are the deepest team in the league. But what Chicago has that's different is that ability to play so many different types of games. Like, oh, you got tall, we need our length. Okay, we got a Stu. We got Stevens, we got Parker. Oh, you want to play a little bit of a bully ball? Cool. We got Dolson. We'll throw her in there, even though she's gonna flop like crazy anytime someone touches her. Yes, she's been playing great, but she's still flopping like crazy. You want to play an athletic game? Okay, that's cool, right? Like we got Kalia Copper, we got Diamond to Shields, we got Lexi Brown, Dana Evans. Like they have all of the elements and pieces to, okay, we're going to reconstruct, and like they're essentially a transformer. Like, okay, we need to be this type of game for this team. Cool, let's do it. We need to do this type of thing for this game. And they have that ability to do that. And it's worked so well during the playoffs. And that's why they're sitting 1-0 at the WNBA Finals right now. On the flip side, with the Mercury, they kind of play their own game, right? Like they don't change their style of play. they're playing the same thing, and it's going to come down to how good they're shooting, are the shots dropping, and can Skylar like I spoke to James Wade and he said it was pretty clear what the goal for the Sky had to be to beat the Mercury. Contain the big three,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I you if I'm the Mercury, I'm looking and I'm saying Diana Taurasi is going to get hers, right? Brittany Griner is playing elite basketball right now. She's going to get hers. It a lot of weight is on Skylar right now. And throughout the playoffs, for a large portion of these playoffs, I have not seen the Skylar that we saw in the second half or the regular season stretch from the Olympics to playoffs. She was playing elite top guard in the league basketball. And now she has reverted back to what we saw when she was on Dallas, where she's trying to play hero ball and you can see her playing with the pressure. Great players, as Diana Taurasi spoke about after that Aces win, great players have a calm in them, right? When all the craziness is happening and the pressure's on, you have to have a calm. And I keep seeing Skylar looking anxious, looking trying to rush in the moment. And that to me, I know there's many elements of why the Sky might run away with this, but to me it comes down to Skylar. If Skylar can't produce like the big three, then this team is just SOL.
Well, here's devil's advocate, because I feel better about Phoenix on Wednesday than I did on Sunday, and here's why. Sophie Cunningham is returning. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did I see that, or was I?
Yeah, I think I saw that.
So that helps. Sophie Cunningham takes a little bit of that pressure off from just another guard who's going to come in and have an edge. Who knows? I mean, who knows? Maybe she goes off and gives you 15 points and is able to kind of knock down some shots. She's proven it before. So you have an added depth of someone who's played all year and been really consistent. That's huge. The addition of Cunningham is huge. I also think, could we see a Bria Hartley breakout game? Now,
that's what I'm waiting for.
Now, I would just actually, I'm saying it just because I want to see it so much. But Bria Hartley comes back. This will be her 8th game of the season on Wednesday. And obviously, it takes a minute to get your legging underneath you. She went from playing like 2 to 3 minutes of those first 4 games back to then her minutes were upped and she's playing in the low 20s. Still getting her footing underneath her. She goes 1 for 8, finishes with 5 points. I would love to see a Bria Hartley game where she comes in and is like efficient. She finishes 5 for 8. Knocks down some shots, takes some pressure off, and then that allows Griner's going to do what Griner's going to do. And even if it's a bad night for Griner, that's probably going to be 18-8. And so then Skylar can maybe. That frees Skylar up a little bit from a pressure standpoint. Taurazi's going to do what Taurazi's going to do. I think Phoenix, I feel much better about Phoenix, especially with their back against the wall, which they are now. You can't go to Chicago down 2. There's just zero chance at that point. But I think
at all. And
Phoenix has some depth.
I agree. I was just going to say, like, the combination of that, because you look at this game 1, right? And Kia Vaughn and Bria Hartley only 1-2 shot. Megan Walker, Alana Smith in a combined 11 minutes did not shoot. So of the 4 bench players who played, they went 3 of 15 for 9 points. You can't have that, right? Like, if Sophie Cunningham comes in, like, that's what I'm looking at. Yes, I know Skylar Diggins-Smith is what I said originally, and that is where my mindset is, right? Because if the big 3 aren't performing, it doesn't matter about the other 7, right? And so for me, my big question is, can Kia Vaughn hit one more so she's 3 of 7? If she goes 3 of 7, that's a huge difference, right? Can Kia Vaughn not have 5 turnovers? That would be huge. Diana Taurasi, 6 turnovers. That's another story. But the other thing that I love from Bria Hartley is we got 2 rebounds. We got 2 assists, 1 turnover. Yeah, she went 1 for 8 from the field. Fine. But those other stats, those other things that she can add into. And honestly, if I'm Sandy Brondello, I'm looking at the bench and I'm saying, and this sounds like such a video game mindset, but like, if you're a bench player, I know a couple of you are going to get big minutes, but you guys need to run your asses off. Like, you just need to be the hustle points, because Shea Petty can't be the only person getting 50-50 balls.
Mm-hmm.
That will doom you. There is far too many times where there's a loose rebound and I see no Mercury player besides Shea Petty rushing over there to get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like somebody else needs to get those
Well,
50-50 balls.
well, yeah,
Who's going to do that?
it does come down to a toughness at this point, especially with Phoenix, and that pride on that home court, and the rebounding battle, the hustle plays. When Phoenix has that edge to them, we know what this team can be. They've proven that through these playoffs and towards the end of the year, especially. So, if I'm Phoenix, you're coming out like you're fighting for your life. This is your only shot at a championship. It's a one game everything right now. And there's no room for letting Chicago throw the first punch. And I feel like Chicago has been the aggressor as of late. They've come out just guns a swinging. Do they let up a little bit, or maybe have subconsciously let up a little bit? They get a little bit comfortable, and Phoenix can jump out on that. That'll be interesting. I think it could go. I think it could go either way. I really do.
I think that with like first of all, underrated is Chicago Sky. We're just waiting in Vegas for the finals, right? Like they were already there, they're ready, their mindset was moved on. The Mercury had like less than 48-hour period, like a 35-hour period
Right.
of like game's over. Let's get back to Phoenix. Let's get our head turned around,
You got babies
rest
in the
and
water.
go.
My God, my goodness. You know what I'm saying?
Right?
Like, can you imagine having a child and I just can't imagine. I cannot imagine. Like,
Well, Rachel, give me like 2 weeks and I'll tell you what it's like.
right,
Minus the playing in a finals game.
right.
Uh, no, but I agree. I mean, props to her because you're running on fumes at that point. If we've all pulled an all nighter and then tried to do something athletic the next day, we've all, you know what I mean? Like we've all stayed up late and then had to play in an intramural basketball game the next day and your body's exhausted and you're just running on fumes. Yeah, like I think the Mercury, besides Danica Rossi, just the team in general, just exhausted, right? You go to game 5, you've literally played all like the most games possible
Yeah,
for a season right now. The only way Phoenix could have played more games possible this season is if they would have made the Commissioner's Cup.
sure.
That like so this team is exhausted. Now they finally got, what we had Monday and today so they can rest.
Yep,
Game 2
yep.
still in Phoenix. They need this right
Yeah,
now because I agree with you. If they don't pull off a win here, you're looking at a sweep in Chicago. I know the story of Diane Taurasi. I know that, the Mercury are going to want to be spoilers or whatever, but I do not bet on sports often. I tell my friends to use their money to bet and give me a little bit of the winnings if we win. But I would put money down Chicago takes if this is the deciding game, game 2. If Chicago takes game 2, this is a sweep.
for sure.
And a switch, I believe, I could be completely wrong. I don't know why I'm not looking this up before I say this, but this is a repeat of the 2014 finals, and I believe the Mercury swept the
Good,
Chicago Sky.
good.
So a little bit of a historical payback, a little bit of take that, Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner. I think so. I think, there's a huge drive from Vanderquigs, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't want to give too much attention to this. I'm just going to say it, and Rachel, tell me what you think. The Chicago Sky and Elena Delle Donne are conjoined in history, right? Like we know that connection. Elena Delle Donne was able to help bring the Sky to the finals and make them a perennial contender, right? She leaves, she goes off to DC, wins a championship there, goes to the finals another time, and really cemented herself. And I think there is still a sour taste in some of the Chicago Sky's mouth. And I'm not saying specifically
Absolutely.
players or fans or whoever. I think this Sky team would love to win a finals without Elena Delle Donne. Maybe that's just me thinking too much into the history of it, but I think, for the people like Quigley and Vandersloot, and Dolson and Copper, who, were either there before while Delle Donne was there or were involved in that trade, you got to think like there is that drive for them to finish the job that they weren't able to do when they had that MVP.
I think I hear what you're saying. I hear a little bit of yes and no is my response. I don't think anyone is like still caught up on that. I know as like fans and like someone who is there at that time, like Yeah, I'm sure, like, that was a big deal, like, the fact that Elena left and, wanted out, and it is what it is. But I do think that people have moved on from that, and I think that there is a recognition with Quigley and Sloot having been in this situation before, um, combined with an extreme sense of urgency. It's now or never in
Mhm.
Chicago. Like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they can find themselves back in this situation next year. I don't know if I see it, but it's a sense of urgency. And James Wade has openly talked about it. We need to win a championship, and we need to design this roster to do it right now. And you combine that with Candace Parker, you get that franchise player in there. You get the likes of Clea Copper playing like the all star that she is. I mean, I just think that it's a testament to a lot of the longevity that we see with this Chicago backcourt of people who've been there and really put in some serious time of getting this franchise from, in my opinion, there's some things to criticize about it. To now they're up here competing for a championship when you know the lack of resources in some ways that Chicago has dealt with over the years to see them in a finals. And in my mind, I mean, it looks really good right now. Um, that's really cool to see because I think it's more so a testament to those players who have remained, who've put in that work, and then you obviously throw in a shot in the arm like Candace Parker returning, and it's just cool to see where the franchise has gone. I don't think no one's sitting around thinking about Elena Deladon, and
Well, yeah, I agree with everything you said. I wasn't saying, like, they're sitting there like, "Yeah, fuck you." You know what I mean? No, excuse my
it
language.
is a part of the
Um,
story, though. It
no,
is a part of the
exactly, like, look, these if you're gonna tell me that you were in the trenches, right, with Elena Deladon, and you lose the finals, and now you're back against that same team with the 2 main stars still there, right? Yes, it's a very different Mercury team. It's the same coach, and it's the same 2 big names, right? And you gotta think there is that taste in their mouth of just, are they thinking about it daily? No. Has it crossed their mind? Yes. Like, I would put money down that a few of the Chicago Sky players, if they haven't spoken between each other about it, have at least in their mind thought about the fact, like, hey, this is almost our chance to, rewrite history how we want it done. And that's the beauty of sports, right? Is these storylines, is the history of it, and the debates of, are they going to be back? Is Candace Parker going to walk off into the sunset if she wins the finals now? There's a lot to it. Um, I'm excited. Rachel, I think it's that time of the show where we start talking predictions.
Whew.
Game 2. I'm gonna make you go first.
You know, I've said I really felt like Chicago would go 3-1. Um, that's kind of my gut is telling me that. I feel like Phoenix has had a couple days to regroup. I think they've got a little more depth. We could see some sort of Bria Hartley um, step up game. I'm not saying she's going to drop 30, but I think that there's an added depth here with the return of Sophie Cunningham. You've got them at home for one more. That sense of urgency is going to be so intense to steal one now before we go back to Chicago. They know damn well they can't lose this game. I don't think Chicago will be. They're not going to let up. They have an equal sense of urgency of winning a championship, but I think Phoenix will win this game in an edge and go back to Chicago 1-1.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it simply boils down to, and the aspect of Sophie Cunningham that I don't think we've spoken about enough is she has that dog, right? Like,
Mhm.
she and Diana Taurasi are cut from the same cloth. Now, I'm not saying that she's going to be, voted the greatest of all time when Sophie Cunningham is in her 17th, 20th, 50th season, whatever it is. What I'm saying is, like, that bark, that fight, that I'm going to play me, I'm going to do me, and I don't care. There's a few players that have that in the league. And one of the biggest issues is when Diana Taurasi is off the court. That's when the Mercury kind of lose that bite, that bark, that attack mentality. Having the depth is great. Having the depth with a player who has that mentality, I think, is the key. I agree with you. I was thinking you were going to go Sky because, like, right now I'm sitting here and I
I
fully think
I wouldn't be
what?
I wouldn't be surprised if Chicago swept this. But
Right? Well, that's the thing. I'm sitting here and I'm going, it feels like a sweep when you just play it out in your mind, but then you add all these elements in and, I think I'm going to have to say I agree with you, Rachel. I think it's a like a 1 or 2 possession final score, but the Mercury find a way to
I
win.
secretly don't
Um
want it to end, and
well, that's the other part is how much of this is us using our semi-elite basketball minds versus how much of it is us being influenced by the idea that we want it to go to game 5. I think in all honesty, even if it doesn't go to game 5 tonight or not tonight, but game 2 is going to have the feel of a game 5 because if you're the Mercury, this is your game 5.
Yep,
And if you're the Sky, you've been playing like every game is game 5.
yep, 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 yep. We'll find out.
All right. We'll have to find out. We'll be back after game 2 to discuss and we'll don't worry. We'll bring on some elite basketball minds to discuss this with you and with us. Rachel, have a good one.
Have a good one.